was in my master's program at the University of Kentucky, and they asked me to create a show that could be a traveling play that students could do, so about 50 minutes. And they had already picked what they wanted. They wanted a play about all the women in Abraham Lincoln's life. And so his mother, his wife, one of the conspirators, the actress that was on stage when he was shot, and the seamstress that I had never heard of. Even working at the Young Abe Lincoln show in Indiana near his childhood home for a summer, I felt like I was kind of immersed in Lincoln history. Yet I had never heard of this woman before. Even when I went through my little Civil War phase in high school, that I was really interested in all that stuff, I had never heard of this woman. And reading her memoir, of course, I didn't have a whole lot of time, so I just kind of flipped through her memoir, but I found some of the passages to be really interesting. And admittedly, when I wrote that play, I didn't quite get Elizabeth Keckley because I hadn't fully read her memoir. And when I started in my first year of my PhD program, we were doing an adaptation class, and they asked, what would you like to adapt? And I knew immediately that, my mind went right back to this memoir that I had read on the floor in a library as I was researching all this Lincoln stuff, and, had just, hadn't read it fully. And I was just intrigued enough that, I wondered why nobody knew who this woman was. She's a fantastic person to learn about, and she has a memoir. Most Lincoln scholars know who she is because a lot of the stuff that they've learned about how Mary Todd Lincoln and Abraham Lincoln got along, in their home comes from this memoir. But other than the researchers, not many people have heard of her, and I think that's really sad because this woman did a lot. She was a slave for 37 years. She was so good at fitting clothing to bodies, which if you think about those huge bell dresses in the day, to be able to fit like a glove these dresses to women's bodies was a real talent. She had that talent, and her patrons got together and purchased her freedom and her sons, and she paid them back almost immediately because she was so good and she was making so much money. She supported her masters and the 17 people in their house on her salary alone, but of course never could keep any for herself. So the fact that her patrons loved her so much that they purchased her freedom, and that she was able to pay every single dollar back is astounding, in itself. And she created charities, and some of the stuff that she did, she was best friends with Mary Todd Lincoln. She's somebody that we should know about in history. And of course it was the memoir itself that made her disappear into history, which is sort of sad. I'm still not sure. The research is not quite clear on how everything played out. Obviously, the book ends at the end of the book, so we don't get to read what happened after. But what we do know is that Mary Todd Lincoln never spoke to her again, and that it was because her publishers published some of Mary Todd Lincoln's letters, her personal correspondence to Elizabeth, that, upset her a lot. And Robert Lincoln tried to have a lot of the books destroyed. He tried to bury her in history, and he almost succeeded. We still have her memoir, but nobody knows who she is. So it made it really important for me to be able to bring her to the stage so that more people could know this wonderful woman and hear from her own words about her life.